Good evening. Tonight, I will tell you an old story from Korea. A story about a humble woodcutter, a deer that could speak, and a maiden who came down from the sky. There is no need to stay awake until the end. If you drift off somewhere in the middle, that is perfectly fine. The story will be here tomorrow. So lower the lights, settle under your blanket, and breathe slowly. Long, long ago, in the far east of the world, there was a land of quiet mountains. The people there called their home the land of the morning calm. In that land, the mountains were old and soft, folded like sleeping animals under a blanket of pine trees. Mist gathered in the valleys at dawn, and in the evening, wood smoke rose slowly from small thatched houses. In one of those valleys, at the foot of the Diamond Mountains, there lived a young woodcutter. He had no fortune and no family except his old mother. Every morning, he climbed the mountain paths with an axe on his shoulder and an empty wooden frame on his back. Every evening, he came down with a load of firewood, sold it in the village, and bought a little rice, a little salt, and sometimes, on a good day, a dried fish for his mother. His life was simple. Wake, climb, chop, descend, sleep. Some might call it a poorer life. But the woodcutter knew the smell of pine resin in the morning, the sound of mountain water under ice, and the way the clouds slid over the ridges like slow white ships. In his own quiet way, he was rich. One afternoon, deep in the forest, the woodcutter heard something crashing through the undergrowth. He turned, and out of the thicket burst a deer. Its sides were heaving. Its dark eyes were wide with fear. Far behind it, down the slope, came the faint shouts of a hunter and the barking of dogs. The deer stopped before the woodcutter and did something no deer should do. It spoke. "Please," said the deer. "Hot me. I will not forget your kindness." Now, the woodcutter had lived on that mountain all his life, and he had never heard an animal speak. Perhaps he should have been afraid, but he was not. He simply looked at the trembling creature, and he felt sorry for it. He lifted the pile of cut branches beside him, let the deer slip underneath, and stacked the wood loosely over it, leaving a small gap for air. Soon the hunter came striding up the path, bow in hand. "Did a deer pass this way?" he asked. The woodcutter pointed calmly toward the far ravine, the one that led away from the valley. "That way," he said. "It was running fast." The hunter nodded, whistled for his dogs, and hurried off. The forest grew quiet again. Only the wind moved in the pines. When the deer came out from under the branches, it bowed its head low, in the way of a creature giving thanks. And then it said something strange. "You have saved my life," said the deer, "and I will give you more than thanks. Listen carefully. On the night of the full moon, go up to the highest pool in the mountain, the one fed by the waterfall. On that night, the daughters of the sky king come down from heaven to bathe in the moonlight. They fly on winged robes, thin as mist. Without the robe, a heavenly maiden cannot return to the sky." The deer looked at him with its deep, dark eyes. "Hide one robe," said the deer, "and its owner will have to remain on the earth. She will become your wife. But remember this one thing. Even after you marry, even after you are happy, do not give the robe back until she has borne you 3 children. Not 2. 3. Do not forget." And with that, the deer bounded away into the shadows of the forest and was gone. The woodcutter stood alone among the trees for a long time. He thought about what he had heard. A pool in the moonlight. Robes made of sky. It sounded like a dream someone else was having. And yet, when the full moon came, he found himself climbing the mountain in the dark, one careful step after another, up toward the sound of falling water. The pool lay below the waterfall like a bowl of black glass. Mist drifted over the surface. The moon floated in the middle of the water, round and white and still. And then the sky opened. Down through the moonlight came the daughters of the Sky King. They descended slowly, like snow falling on a windless night. Their robes trailed behind them, glowing faintly, lighter than silk, lighter than air. The maidens left their robes on the rocks and slipped into the water, and their laughter was soft, like bells heard from very far away. The woodcutter, hidden behind a pine tree, hardly dared to breathe. Quietly, so quietly, he reached out and took the robe nearest to him, folded it small, and hid it inside his jacket. When the night grew late, the maidens rose from the water and put on their robes. One by one, and one by one they floated up into the sky, like lanterns released from a festival. But the youngest maiden searched the rocks, and searched again, and could not find her robe. Her sisters circled above her, calling gently until the night wind carried them away, and she was left alone by the dark water. She wept quietly. The sound was not loud or bitter. It was the sound of someone very far from home. Then the woodcutter stepped out from behind the pine tree and bowed low. "Do not be afraid," he said. "The night is cold. My house is small, but it is warm, and my mother is kind. Come down with me, and in the morning things will look better than they do now." What else could she do, alone on a mountain, in a strange land, under a strange moon? She followed him down the path, and the pine trees closed softly behind them. Now, you might expect a story of sorrow to follow. But that is not what happened, at least not for a long while. The Heavenly Maiden stayed. Season followed season. She learned the taste of mountain vegetables in spring and the smell of rain on the vegetable garden. The woodcutter was gentle with her, and his old mother loved her like a daughter. And slowly, without either of them naming the day it happened, the maiden began to smile again. They married. In time, a child was born, a boy with his mother's calm eyes. A few years later, a second child came, a girl who laughed at the wind. The little house at the foot of the mountain was full of small sounds. A wooden spoon on a rice bowl. Bare feet on the wooden floor. Rain on the thatched roof, and beneath it, sleeping breath. The woodcutter was happy, and the maiden seemed happy too. But sometimes, on clear autumn nights, she would stand in the yard with a child on her back, looking up at the stars for a long, long time. And the woodcutter, watching from the doorway, would feel the folded robe hidden away in its chest, like a small weight on his heart. Years passed. One evening, when the two children were asleep, the maiden spoke to her husband very softly. "I know you have it," she said. "I have known for a long time. I am not angry. You are a good man, and this has become my home. But I would like to see it again. Only to hold it. Only to remember the sky." The woodcutter looked at his wife. He thought of the deer's warning. Not 2 children. 3. But he also thought, she has been here so many years. She has children who hold her hands. She calls my mother, mother. Surely, by now, it is safe. Surely, by now, she would choose to stay. And besides, he loved her. And it is hard, so very hard, to keep a secret from someone you love. So he opened the chest and unfolded the robe and laid it in her arms. The maiden held it for a long moment. Then she slipped it on, only to feel it, only for a heartbeat. But the robe remembered the sky, even if she had tried to forget. It lifted her, gently, the way the stream lifts a fallen leaf. She reached out and gathered her sleeping children, one in each arm, because a mother does not leave her children, not even for heaven. The woodcutter reached for her hand. Their fingers touched and then did not. She rose through the open door into the autumn night with the children breathing softly against her shoulders. She did not vanish like a ghost. She rose slowly, growing smaller and fainter until she was one bright point among the stars. And then the night was only the night again. The woodcutter stood in the yard until morning. Some say the story ends there. But in the villages of Korea, the old grandmothers tell a little more. They say the woodcutter grieved, and the speaking deer, hearing of his sorrow, came to him once again. The deer told him of a well on the mountain top, where a bucket came down from heaven on the night of the full moon to draw water for the Sky King's palace. "Climb into the bucket," said the deer, "and it will carry you up." And the woodcutter did. He rose through the clouds in a wooden bucket, holding the rope with both hands, and at the top of the sky he found his wife, and his son, and his daughter waiting for him. The Sky King, seeing how far a poor woodcutter had come for love, welcomed him, and for a time, the family lived together above the clouds, where the stars are as close as garden lanterns. If you're still awake, you may wonder whether he ever came back down to earth. There is more to the tale about an old mother and a borrowed horse of heaven and a bowl of hot soup spilled at the wrong moment. But those are worries for another night. Tonight, let us leave them there, together, in the country above the clouds. A woodcutter who was kind to a deer. A maiden who found her way home. 2 children asleep on the wind. The mountains of that old land are still there. The mist still gathers in the valleys at dawn. And on clear nights, when the moon is full over the Diamond Mountains, the highest pool still holds its small white circle of light, waiting in case anyone should ever come down again to bathe. Sleep now. Let the story keep watch. Good night.